So we might as well crack on and see if people generally join us. So nice to meet you, Brian. Thanks for coming and joining us. I've, as I said to you, these are my little WhatsApp group, networking group, mainly Essex based. We've only kind of been set up 2 or 3 months through lockdown, and we were having a bit of a chat in a networking meeting because a few of us were interested before lockdown in service accommodation, and it kind of all came to a bit of a standstill really, because none of us have actually, I think it was you, Chris, who's bought a property. No,
we're looking at, bought one in the process of buying and building for serviced accommodation, holiday lets, that sort of thing, on a nightly basis. Yeah. But the company that we were dealing with has closed down. Right. So we're looking around for something else at the moment.
So we were throwing a few ideas around and just chatting about things, and I thought, do you know what? It'd be nice to have someone who's kind of really knows what they're talking about to come and perhaps give us a bit of a chat. I know Ryan because I was on Ryan's WhatsApp group, and I get quite a few emails from Ryan about mentoring and bits and pieces, and I've seen that obviously he's pretty knowledgeable and he's got a lot of his own essays, so I thought he'd be the ideal person to ask to come along, and he kindly said yes, so thank you, Ryan.
No problem.
And I'll hand over to him and let you, I don't know if you've got a presentation or you're just doing a Q&A.
No, just, I kind of, believe it or not, I kind of wing these things quite a lot. So all my webinars are just off the cuff normally, but just fire away any questions, really. It's kind of your show, I guess, and your floor. So just fire away any questions. And I'll
I mean, yeah, from my perspective, we were looking at getting a 3-year deal with a company that provides holiday homes, and we're sort of 20 minutes away from the coast. But unfortunately, due to current circumstances, they just stopped completely doing this. And they've closed the company down because they had a few contracts with people, like 3-year contracts, where they pay X amount a night. Mm-hmm. And they're obviously just not getting anybody in at the moment to go on a holiday, so they've got nothing coming in and they've got outgoing, so they closed down. I'm just wondering whether what the best route is to try and find out how we could actually fill these rooms going forward. Is there going to be a big change, do you think, due to COVID, about how these companies operate, or what do you think?
I mean, my portfolio is, we've got quite a lot of city centres. Well, not city centre stuff, city stuff. We do have stuff outside the city centres. I tend to try and go for sort of the construction industry and try and get guys that are travelling for work. And then where we kind of sit, I guess we get weekend travel as well, obviously under normal circumstances. Stag and hen parties, things like that. So that works well for us for the majority of our stuff. We've just taken on 10 at the minute, scaling to 30 in a block down in London. So that's kind of our step into, well, I guess we've got some in Reading as well, but our big step out of the northeast and into another area. But again, contractors, people traveling for work tends to be the sort of profile for those type of places. I do have a few mentees on the program where they are in places like Cotswolds and holiday type destinations, and I think obviously COVID hasn't been great for anybody in the service accommodation industry, but I do think we're pretty much not out of it now, but it's definitely picking up. And I do think going forward, for me, I think service accommodation units have got to be safer than a hotel. So I think we'll pick up traffic where people may have once stayed in a hotel, but now they want to stay in sort of service accommodation stuff. But again, I think there's a lot of short-minded people as well. You know, COVID is even if it's worst case scenario, a 6-month thing, property's a 20-30 year game. It's not a 6-month game, so I think that you've always got to have that mindset, and you got to kind of just ride the storm a bit at the minute. And to be honest, if you're set up properly, there should have been grants, there should have been government funding for you, and you should technically not be in a bad position. But I think there's a lot of people got into serviced accommodation thinking it was get rich quick, I'll just pay a deal sourcer and everything's going to be fine. Probably spent the money that they did earn from it rather than reinvesting it in cash flow in their business, and unfortunately can't cash flow through these time periods. So for me, it's quite good because there's less supply out there. So obviously you assume that you're going to be busier. But I think any property business is about diversification. So, we don't just have service accommodation. We've got HMOs, we've got single lets, we've got project management, we've got various things in the business. So, so it is all about having that other income streams to rely on when one income stream isn't working. But I was actually quite surprised with how sort of April and May have gone. I did genuinely think when it first went into lockdown, I did genuinely think, right, April is 0 bookings, absolutely no revenue at all on the service accommodation side, and kind of ran the numbers on that and thought, okay. But we actually turned a profit on the service accommodation side in both April and May, albeit not as much as we normally do, but we still made money, so that was quite pleasing. And that was kind of, probably the way we've set up over the years of the way we go after a certain industry and the way we follow up and the way that we treat people. And, a lot of our stuff is direct bookings and regular stays and longer term stuff. And possibly even the stuff that comes off the channels, the way we price and the way we position ourselves, we do tend to do quite well. We do tend to get bookings. So, I'm not sure what the magic formula is. I just think it's a combination of quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah. How do you get the bookings? Do you generate them yourself, Ryan? Or do you have a company that does it for you? Or
no, we
because you obviously operate it direct, don't you?
Yeah, so I do everything. So my business, we run everything. So we tend to use the channels to start off with. So your booking.coms, your Expedias, your TripAdvisors, all that sort of stuff. That's where the initial bookings tend to come from. And then we have a system whereby we collect every email address, we collect every phone number, and then we have a strong follow-up process. We've obviously got quite a sizable database now. So, the minute COVID hit, we were like sending out thousands of emails, saying, we're discounting our rates if you need safe. We picked up quite a lot of key workers wanting to isolate and things like that at the beginning. We had a lot of people stuck in the area needing accommodation, so we picked that up as well. But that was from leveraging the database and being able to send those emails out and getting those bookings. But that was through the process over the years of collecting the database and looking after the customers and things like that. So. But initially, most bookings will start from booking.com, Airbnb, wherever it is. That's that's where everyone starts their journey, and I think these people that say that the 100% direct bookings and things like that, personally, I think they're full of shit. But I think it starts. Most even HR managers of big companies, they'll start their search on a booking.com or an Airbnb. Now, they know that getting direct, they get a better deal. So the clever ones will figure out kind of where you are, or if we're quite clever with the way, like I put a logo in some of my pictures. So, and some of the pictures might have a little sort of faint book direct for the best deals. So subtly, you're kind of hinting that go and find our website online and you'll get a better deal. And the savvy sort of travelers and the HR and travel coordinators, they know all that. So they then get to your website and then they end up booking or sending an inquiry direct. So, but ultimately, I think everybody's search does typically start with a Booking.com or a bit like, I guess if I said, go and find me the cheapest travel insurance, you'd probably jump on Go Compare or the supermarket thing, and I think that's kind of the mentality for searching for travel these days. It's either Expedia, Airbnb or Booking.com. So you kind of got to get your presence there and then work with the algorithms and understand how the algorithms work to get your listings higher and make sure that you're visible. And then from that, it's up to you how good you are then at turning them into longer bookings, direct bookings. And, all my team are targeted on direct booking values per month. So they all have to get a certain amount of direct bookings. And obviously I commission them on that as well. So their easiest bit is to leverage if they get wind that it's an email or a work contract, they're targeted to really get out there and get on the phones to them. How long are you staying for? Are you in the area long? Are you working with any other companies in the project? Can we speak to them? So they're constantly out there. And it works well for us.
Okay.
Right, and in terms of, sorry, Chris, were you asking more questions?
Go on, Karen.
I was just going to ask, in terms of your advice for someone getting into SAs for the first time, where would you say the key points are in terms of playing it as safe as we possibly can? What should we be aiming for? You talked about going for the construction industry. I'm guessing that's obviously a winning formula for you. Are there key points where you say, look, if you want to make sure your first one succeeds, you need to have X, Y, Z, A, B, C? Do you have like a top tips type suggestions?
I think for me, it's just, I think any investment in the property game is just about good due diligence, at the starting point. And I think you kind of got to know what works and what doesn't work, or you've got to try and, de-risk everything as much as you possibly can by not buying into stupid deals, not paying too much rent if you're going to go rent to SA or not. I think there's a big difference between owned property and rented property, because for me, owned property, well, you can always flip them into a single let if it doesn't work as a serviced accommodation unit. Or the bigger ones actually complement a HMO strategy as well, obviously depending on location. Yeah. So, if I take a rental on and it's a 4 or 5 bedder, if it doesn't work as a SA, well, you've already furnished it, so you can normally just flip it into a HMO. So you kind of get 2 bites of the cherry. But typically, if you kind of do your due diligence right and you know what you're looking for, and you can only, well, they're all just guesses at the end of the day, aren't they? But you are trying to sort of just guess the best possible way you can through. I always think hotels is a good sign. So if there's hotels nearby, that's a good sign that they'll work, because a lot of hotels spend a lot of money on research before they put furniture in, lay a brick, agree contracts, whatever it might be. Your travel-ins don't just end up there by total chance. They've researched and they know there's a market there for demand, and they're going to fill their rooms and all that sort of stuff. So for me, hotels is normally a good sign that you've got enough demand there to make it work. But for me, service accommodation is not about luxury; it's about economies of scale, and I think this is where a lot of people get it wrong. So I see, like, on Facebook all the time, fancy furniture packs and beautiful looking apartments, and great, all well and good. But like, if people want luxury, they'll just book a £500 a night hotel. Like, they're not going to go and stay in an Airbnb for luxury. People stay in Airbnbs because they want to cut costs, or they want to save money, or they want to have that economies of scale where they can have 6 or 7 people sleeping under the same roof, and they're not having to book 2 or 3 rooms. And that's where, like, now I don't put washing machines in, I don't put wardrobes in, I don't put UHT milk in anymore. We've cut quite a lot of stuff out because it just doesn't get used. So I remember we put a brand new washing machine in a few years ago, and And then my cleaner one day said, "You do realise your washing machine's not been used in about 7 months?" And I said, "Oh, fair enough. So we'll stop buying that then." You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would be for presumably people that are staying like long term. I mean, if someone's there for a week or more, they would use the washing machine. If it's just a few nights here and there, then they won't. Like with a hotel stay, right?
Yeah, but I mean, even like most long-term bookings will be from companies, and it's when they're working on rotas. But they still go home. So most of them will like stay. I think we've got one at the minute where they've just booked for about 4 months, but we kind of do a deal. So we'll say, well, if you only take Monday to Friday, it's cheaper because then we can still sell the weekend out. But if you want it for the full 4 months, then we'll have to charge you more because we lose out on the weekend revenue. And some companies say, sod the staff, they can travel home on a weekend and we're not going to give them the flexibility. Or some of them say, well, we'll just book it for the whole time and the staff can come and go as they want over the weekend. But obviously they have families and kids, most of them, so they want to go home at weekends and come back. So you'd be surprised, even the longer ones still. Well, I know what I'm like. I go on a 3-week holiday and I don't unpack my suitcase. You know, that's why I don't put wardrobes in. I'm just that type of person. You know, I just live out my suitcase. I am what I need. And I take enough clothes for that duration. But
can I just throw in a controversial comment? It sounds like there's lots of men staying in your places. So the use of the washing machine and the unpacking, I'm thinking that works really well.
Yeah.
I'll take it home to the wife. She'll deal with it. Be fine.
Yeah, basically. Our typical demographic probably is, as I said before, construction guys, and that's what we kind of aim for. But then, you know, at the same time, we do get, you know, the weekend, we get a lot of, obviously, females. We actually get a lot of, in our sort of city centre, quayside type properties, we get a lot of we did used to get quite a few sort of travelling sales reps, you know, they used to come up from team meetings and things like that through the week. They used to get the train up from sort of Leeds or wherever, and then they'd check in and then they'd go for their team meetings in city centre locations. And we used to get quite a lot of them come through. But they're not, you don't want your 1 and 2 night bookings. You want your longer ones, you know, they're the ones that you want, the ones that come back every week, because they also treat the properties a bit better. They tend to look after them a bit better, and we get less. During COVID, we've had a lot less hassle because we haven't had the weekenders. You know, at the end of the day, these guys are pissed and they're not coming back and having parties or whatever. You know, they are just go to work, come back, get changed, have a shower, watch Coronation Street, and then go to bed and repeat. You know, and then go home. Whereas your Friday and Saturday nights, they're actually probably not in the property at all until late on after they've come back from town or whatever it might be. But you know, that's part of the game. You know, that's what we want. You know, at the end of the day, our weekend bookings, you know, we charge, you know, we've got some places that sleep 14 people and we'll charge £400 or £500 a night, you know, on the weekend. But
do you charge per property rather than per person, per room? Is that how you structure it?
Yeah. I think if you do the per person thing, you could end up renting out a 5-bed house to 3 people and not get the money that it deserves.
Okay.
So
regardless of how many people stay, you charge for the night for the property, whatever size it is, and that's up to them whether they fill it or whether it's half full, but they've paid the price regardless.
Yeah.
You're always going to be in a win situation because you've budgeted presumably your bills for a full house as well. Cost of water.
Everything we price based on obviously what a full term would cost us linen wise and sort of average cleaning times and things like that. But as we've got bigger, obviously the linen and the cleaning's all in house now, so that's all like on the books as opposed to outsourced. I think about a year ago, I looked at my cleaning and linen bills and nearly died. So I was like, Jesus Christ, that is a lot of money that's going out each month. And I was like, I'm sure we could do that ourselves for a lot cheaper. And our bills are probably about a third of what we used to pay now for cleaning and linen.
So you actually employ people, Ryan, to do all the cleaning and linen? Yeah. What about dropping off keys and that sort of thing? What happens around that? I mean, it's all you know, excuse my naive questions. I'm quite new to the property industry, so I'm looking to, you know, have a few different income streams.
Yeah.
It's the mechanics of how it all works. I'm quite
so I'm deep down, I'm probably a bit of a tech geek. So I also, when I first started out, I never really wanted, I didn't want the hassle, but I also didn't want loads of staff. And to be fair, for the size of the business, we still haven't actually got that many staff because I've like linked a lot of systems together through various like programs like Zapier and obviously we use Beds24 as a channel manager, and it links all the systems together. So we can have probably 80% of our guests or book either online or on the website, and they'll go all the way through their booking and check out without even speaking to anybody in our company. But we still manage to collect IDs, collect the contracts, give them a good experience to get, easy access, easy entry, exit, all that sort of stuff. And we still get 5 stars, so it works. It's only when something happens when they get to the property that we probably need to sort of go into the guest handling side of things and actually speak to them, i.e. the boiler might not be working, or they can't seem to figure the lockbox out, or whatever it might be, but typically we use lockboxes for all the London gig's a bit different. We've actually got somebody who lives in the building who goes and meets the guest and gives them the key, because you can't put lockboxes anywhere. But the rest of them are all just lockboxes, either drilled on the wall outside or somewhere near the property. Most of them are pretty much on the property, and they just check in and check out, which again saves money, and it's a lot easier for everyone, because some of these contractors will be, say on the checkout day, they could leave at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work that day and not come back. Well, if you were doing a meet and greet, you wouldn't really want to be going out at 6 a.m. and meeting somebody and them having to wait for them to get there, or if they get caught in traffic or whatever. So we just do lockboxes, and it works very well.
All right, so it's all fairly reliable then. People just do it. They do it rather than just leave the keys somewhere.
Yeah, just put them back in the lockbox. So they get their keys out the lockbox and they put them back in the lockbox. I mean, don't get me wrong, every now and then lockboxes fail, or people, for some strange reason, post the keys back through the letterbox. But then the cleaners have kind of got access to get in, so it's not too much of an issue. But yeah, it's all about, for me, I want to always try and automate every part of the business as much as I possibly can, because I've got no intention of speaking to guests. I've got no intention of dealing with tenants. So we try and automate it as much as we possibly can. And it works well. The way we've got it set up, it works well. It's efficient, and it means I can keep the employee costs down.
Yeah. Brilliant. Sounds really good. So it's all like a software platform that you've got. It links it all together.
It's quite a few. It's not just one. So it's quite a few kind of all linked together. So like when one thing happens here, it triggers a load of actions in another one, and various things like that. So it kind of all flows in it, but it goes from booking all the way through to checkout, and then even into sort of follow up reviews, all that sort of stuff. So so it works, but it's taken a lot of. I've been through a few systems and tried a lot of stuff and tested a lot of stuff, and a bit like the UHT milk, for example. Obviously, we were putting that in every apartment, and then the cleaner one day said, "You do realise you've got loads of this UHT milk. No one uses it, so you take it out, and then you manage the complaints and see." Are we getting any complaints? Because we don't have that, and then we didn't. So I was like, right, we don't need that anymore. And that was the same with the washing machines. So we took them out, and then we didn't get any complaints. So it's like, right, we don't need them anymore, So, we do have. I've got a few in storage units. So if we ever got a long booking and they were like, we need a washing machine, then obviously we're going to put one in, But or you just go and buy one for the sake of 300 quid. If you've got a £5,000 booking, well, you just go and put a £300 washing machine in. It's not a big deal, So it just sits on your assets on your accounts anyway. So it's part. It's a purchase, isn't it? So yeah.
Right. And when you're looking for properties, what are you looking for in terms of an ideal property? How do you source them? Where do you find them from? What are you looking for?
I don't do so much sourcing these days, but my team do.
You too? Okay. Whoever does it for you.
Yeah, no. So we've actually, I'm all about leveraging time. So I actually have virtual assistants in the Philippines who do all of our sort of portal scraping, and then they fill in lists, and then they send the lists to various people within the team, and then they'll dig deeper into the information, and then they'll decide whether it's worth viewing, whether it's worth following up, etc. And then that just cuts down like so many hours of people scrolling when you can pay someone $3 an hour to do it for you. Sourcing wise, again, it comes down to strategy, so it depends what you're looking for. Obviously, we have a lot of I run a lot of Facebook ads, and we do a lot of marketing, and generate a lot of our own leads, direct to vendor leads, and from them they tend to be the better deals. As we've grown and built relationships with landlords, I find that the type of landlords that we tend to attract have about 3 to 6 or 7 properties, so they're not like massive, but they're not too small. So you do a good job for them on one property, you know, they see that they're getting paid their rent every month, they see that you never bother them and there's no hassle. So funny enough, tonight, one of the first landlords that we tied up with several years ago, he's actually just texted me tonight saying, I've got another property now coming back on, do you want it? You know, so a lot of stuff like that kind of comes out the woodwork from relationships that we've got with landlords. And then now we get a lot of referrals, and quite often I get phone calls of so-and-so's passed me your number, I hear you do this X, Y, and Z, would you like, I've got a property. And so, but in the early days, and obviously what I teach on the mentor program is just to kind of build relationships with the right people, and always be looking to try and, I don't really use estate agents that much for sort of the rental stuff. For the buying we do, and for the below market value sort of purchases we do. But for the sort of rental and lease options, it all comes from our marketing, really. Okay.
So do you tend to just have large properties, or have you got a whole mixture? You got small 2-bed places as well as?
We've got 1-bed flats up to sort of 7-bed houses. So
all SAs?
Yeah. Well, we have that size in the SA portfolio as well, the HMO portfolio as well. So yeah.
And do they all work just as well? Or do you really tend to find the bigger ones are the better revenue generators?
The bigger ones are, apart from, I would say the bigger ones have lost the most money during COVID, because the little we tend to have during COVID, I think the sort of 2 and 3 bed flats were seem to be more in demand than the bigger ones. Having said that, definitely in the last couple of weeks, the bigger ones have started to get booked again, as I think businesses start to get back to normal. And because businesses would rather put 10 guys in a place than buy 5 hotel rooms.
Yeah, cheaper.
So,
economies of scale for them as well, surely.
Yeah, that's for me, that is what service accommodation is. It's not about fancy apartments and luxury. It's about economies of scale. So, and I think if you have that mindset, I mean, don't get me wrong, it might be different on the South Coast or somewhere like that, where it's a pure holiday destination, and it might, but then you're probably going to get 5 or 7 night minimum stays as opposed to maybe 2 or 3 nights, you know. So
I was going to say, what occupancy levels do you work on when you're stacking a deal and you're crunching your numbers? What occupancy percentage as a rule are you working on to make it work?
I work on 21 nights booked in a month, which is about 73% or something like that. So when we calculate deals, I actually calculate it all the way back to sort of a break-even point. So what is the worst case scenario? What does our monthly rate have to be to just cover our costs of the deal?
And do you have like a minimum criteria for that? Are you like 50%, or how do you kind of stack that?
No, we just sort of look at, so I'll do the analysis based on what I think it would be, the rates would be on a weekend and a weekday, and what I think if you're good at what you do, you should be getting 21 days booked. That's pretty standard stuff, really. And in the summer months, you should be like 28 to 29 days booked out of a 31 month. You know, you should be fully booked, really. And then say if, for example, it was £125 on a weekend and it was £85 on a weekday, I would like just drop that down to see, okay, well, our break-even point would be, say, £80 on a weekend and £50 on a weekday, and that would still clear the costs. And then I'd say, well, I'm quite confident that we can get that for those properties in those areas, worst case scenario, you know. So, because if you want to feel like, I could drop all my prices tonight to like £20 a night in every, and you'd pretty much be booked. The whole thing would be,
of course.
you know. So, but obviously we'd make no money, so there'd be no point doing it. So you can always, I always want to know what the level has to be to break even. And if they look to me like very cheap rates for those properties, it gives you the confidence that, okay, well, worst case scenario, we could drop those rates down. And, you know, that's what we've done recently. Like we had, like the big 5-6 bedders, I think we had for like £45 a night during COVID. And we still didn't get any
Whole property, Ryan?
Sorry?
45 a night for the whole property?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
It was like, you know, March the 26th when shit was hitting the fan, and you're like,
yeah, right. Okay.
So, and you know, I kept them pretty low for April, and then as things started to move a bit towards the sort of May, we started creeping them back up, and now they're all back to normal now. So, sort of pre-COVID pricing, and then they work on the pricing system, so they fluctuate on a daily basis depending on supply and demand. So,
okay. And can I just ask about funding for an SA? If you're buying one, I haven't actually looked into this an awful lot myself so far, but is it a special type of mortgage you have for funding?
Yeah. So there's various lenders out there now that do sort of specific SA mortgages, which we have some properties on and some properties we don't. I think some mortgage lenders are also quite flexible if you sort of speak to them and you've got good like we are portfolio lending now, so it's slightly different, but if you've got good relationships with them, because some of my properties I've had on buy-to-lets and then I decided I want to run SA on them. Some of them I've bought purposely for SA, but then decided to flip them to buy-to-let. So it's kind of like you've also got to get it right at the beginning, or you end up paying a lot of fees on flipping mortgages backwards and forwards.
Okay.
So some of them, also you've got to think, well, if I'm going to buy this property and it doesn't work in 3 months, I'll put it back to a buy-to-let. So some people say we should do it on a buy-to-let mortgage first, and then if it does work as SA, then you go, you speak to your lender, and then if they don't want to do it, you get it refinanced, because you can always do it as a single let. So it's just, I think this is where you've got to have a good mortgage broker, and you need, like, you know, and have good relationships with your lenders as well, which is probably easier as you get bigger and you buy more, because obviously they don't want to lose your business. But there are lenders out there, and I think they're getting more and more, or they were pre-COVID, getting more and more friendly to SA. A bit like, you know, a few years ago, limited company mortgages, you could hardly get them, whereas now they're pretty easy to get, you know, and they're at decent rates as well. So.
Okay. And do you have a lot of R2 SAs, or do you purchase all of them?
No. Yeah, I'm a fan of controlling strategies as well as purchasing strategies. We've got quite a few rentals, and we've got quite a lot of managed stuff now as well. So for me, they're quick. I think I acquired 5 in 10 days when I first kind of discovered rent to SA. You know, wow. Just like basically, I had a few little. I had a flat that I couldn't get rented out, so I was speaking to my friend who was in the property game, and he was like, "Oh, I've got one of mine on Airbnb," and I was like, "What's Airbnb?" And then he was like, "Oh, it's like basically you're a hotel, and you're like, rather than have tenants." I was like, "All right," and then so I let this flat for about another 2 weeks, and I couldn't get rented out, so I thought, sod it. So I went to IKEA and bought some furniture, put it on, took some photos on my iPhone, put it on this Airbnb, and I was getting bookings within like 10 minutes of listing it. So, and then the bookings never stopped. And I was like, oh, that works. So I then started bit by bit changing my buy-to-let portfolio into serviced accommodation units, where they kind of worked. And every single one just kept getting booked. And then I quite enjoyed it. So I then got a corporate booking for a long-term stay, and they needed more rooms than I had available at the time. So I was thinking about kicking some tenants out, but then I thought I might get myself in trouble for doing that. So I thought, how can I get around this problem? Because I didn't want to lose the booking. So I didn't know it was called Rent to SA. I didn't know what kind of rent to rent was at the time. I just rang a few people. I just started ringing landlords and asking, can I rent your property? And I was explaining what it was for. And as I said, I picked up kind of 5 in 10 days quite quickly, and then I fulfilled the contract for the contractors, and then that kind of, I was a bit hesitant. I was like, will this work? Will I make any money from it? But I started seeing good returns from them all, so I thought, sod it. So we went quite heavy into that. So yeah, we've got quite a lot of rentals.
When you set up a rental with a landlord, do you have a break clause in case it doesn't work, or are you always quite confident with the properties in the areas?
Yeah, I don't. I kind of have confidence in my due diligence, and I guess experience now that it works. So I don't. And some people might say that's stupid. Some people might say it's good, but it works for me. And I think one thing that's really benefited me, which I've found in the last couple of weeks, is I've paid all my bills during COVID. I never went to any landlords and said, please give me a rent discount, because I'm also a landlord. So I sit on the other side of the fence, and I wouldn't want my tenants coming to me saying, I need my rent discounting. So, because, you use that money to fund the business, and they're exactly the same. So they've all, that's probably given them even more trust. And I've had more referral calls since lockdown off so-and-so recommended you. So because I never went crying to them, I paid all my rent. And some of these properties lost like thousands, because they were sat there empty. But I'm not looking at COVID as I'm not looking at 2020 as a 3-month thing. I'm looking at 2020 as 2020. So I'm still confident that those properties will earn money in 2020. And ultimately then that means that's a profit, So for me, I think I've always been one that if you honour agreements and you pay your bills, you end up getting a lot more out of business ventures. And I think you get a lot further forward in life. And that's just kind of how I've operated. And I think it's good sort of code to operate under. And it definitely pays dividends in times like this, because, you've got a lot of, well, there's a million, rent to SA sort of people that have disappeared by the wayside because they couldn't support their business. And, those, unfortunately, I think what we will find is landlords who've maybe been burnt from those people that guaranteed rents and then didn't honour the agreements. And then you go along and say, can I guarantee my rent, or I'll give you 5 years or whatever. They might just say, well, I had one of them before and he didn't stand by it, so why should I believe you, type of thing. So I think you might have a bit of an uphill battle with that one going forward. But I think like anything in property, it's a people's game, and it's whether they trust you or not.
Yeah, indeed.
So
I've got a question, Ryan. One of the things we were discussing the other day is when Azar's joined us and we started up a partnership before lockdown to go into SA in Southend in Essex. And we kind of carried on, although we couldn't go ahead with getting a property at that time, we kind of carried on doing a bit of research. And from speaking to lots of contacts, it's come across as though I've looked online, and there appears to be about 80 properties, but probably 30% of them are owned by the same SA operator. And I've tried to make contact with him a couple of times because he does property management as well, but he hasn't really responded. And I also spoke to a letting agent who a friend put me in contact with, who said he's open to the whole R2R strategy for SA, but he knows this bloke and particularly deals with him. And I think he's probably got a bit of a monopoly going on with the agents and bits and pieces. And we was kind of discussing, is that something that you would still pursue, or would you think that it's probably not the best idea to try and take him on, being that he's so established?
Take him on in what sense? Like
being because you're almost in competition with him, so we're trying to kind of get, because obviously you say you don't really need to use the agent so much anymore, but to start out we probably will need to, but they seem to have a very good relationship with this guy anyway, so anything that comes up they seem to pass his way. And also with regards to actually the accommodation, I mean, his accommodation do look really lovely. And, you know, is that a lot of properties, like 80 properties in a town like Southend, albeit, you know, it's probably a city size now, is that too much competition?
I mean, people talk about saturation all the time, but I think saturation for me is probably a good thing, 'cause it means it works. You know, if there's a lot in a certain area, it means it works. But I think if you do a good job and you provide good value for money, then people will always book your places. You know, so I think getting the deals, if he's got the estate agent wrapped up, then there is a good chance the estate agent's going to always send him the deals, or certainly send him the good ones. And probably when he doesn't want the deals, they then get offloaded, and they're probably the deals you don't want. But for me, it's all about, I think there's plenty. I mean, I'm sure if we jumped on properties for rent in Essex right now on Rightmove, there'd be, I don't know, 3,000, maybe 4,000. But you only need 10 of them. You know what I mean? So there's plenty of opportunity out there, but it's like you got to get direct to the vendors. And I don't think apart from I've got an agreement now. I'm kind of in joint venture with an estate agent now on serviced accommodation, but that only happened like sort of in the last 6 months. Whereas when I first was getting started, all my stuff was sourced direct to vendor, direct to landlord, through just finding them basically online and just and meeting them, and then building relationships with them, running adverts. I did a marketing mentorship about 2017. I've always been quite interested in lead generation and marketing, but I did that. I spent 10 grand on a marketing mentorship, and it's the best money I've ever spent. So I've always been quite handy with adverts and generating leads and stuff like that. So a lot of my stuff has come from kind of those type of leads, because obviously they are your motivated landlords that tend to pick up on those leads, and then ultimately they're a bit more open to trying anything, and you know, you normally get better deals financially as well. So so I am a big fan of marketing. I think that's one thing that a lot of property courses and mentorships, but also a lot of property businesses don't do enough of, and that is marketing. I think they think you just speak to estate agents daily and all of a sudden you get all the deals, whereas if you focused your time and your money and your effort onto producing your own leads, you know, I think you get far better results, and a lot more efficient as well. So
yeah, that's a good point. So when you say you JV with an estate agent now, what is that? You know, they have a share of any particular properties they refer?
No, so this is a bit different. We I mean, we started picking it was about December last year we started. He reached out to me, and we're trying to set up, we've got a few properties on the go of his already, and then the idea was to try and set up 5 a month going forward, and then obviously COVID hit, which kind of put the brakes on things a bit. But the idea is to sort of speak to we're going to set something up and then push it national if we can, in terms of offering estate agents and landlords a better way than tenants. So it's more of a new business model as opposed to a JV, but we are currently JVing on his properties. So, and then what he wanted to do was test the water that they work on his properties, and then he's then going to open that up to his book of landlords, and we were going to guarantee the rents for the landlords on his books, and go from there. So I'm just waiting. He hasn't actually reopened yet. He's reopening. Actually, it might have been today. I think he was reopening his doors. He didn't feel comfortable enough putting his staff back out there a few weeks ago when sort of the agencies were allowed to reopen. So it's just a case of let him get settled back in, and then we'll probably pick everything back up. But there was a good plan, and we were sort of executing the plan and getting things set up quite well. And then obviously March or COVID came around and kind of just put the brakes on things. But I am quite confident that we've been talking throughout it all, and we both still want to do it. So we'll just push forward. Probably, I think the way the bookings are going, I think in the next 2 weeks, SA is going to be back to I would say 70-75% of where it was, and then I think once the pubs and the restaurants and stuff open on July the 6th, I think that's it, back to normal. And I think that the bookings will be flying. And probably, I actually think we're going to have a better summer than ever because, you know, people aren't going to be traveling abroad, and people might have done the holidays already with work, and, you know, and I just maybe lost money on holidays and stuff like that. So I do think there's going to be a lot more people traveling the UK this summer, and that's going to pay dividends, I think, for the portfolios, and hopefully let us catch up the losses.
Yeah, I think you're right, definitely.
Yeah.
Another issue that we were encountering was people talking about when you're looking at rent to rent SA, and with regards to if you can get the landlord to agree, that there may be issues with their lender agreeing the property to BSA. Is that something you encounter a lot, and is there a way around that?
No, I mean, so the way I do my agreements, it's like we're a management agent of that property as opposed to a tenant or a corporate agreement that then forces a subletting issue. But as long as they sign my contract, and in my contract it does say you must tell your mortgage company that, you know, you're doing this, and you must tell your insurance company that. I still take insurance out on all the properties that we take over, because I don't trust all landlords. I don't think they always do tell their insurance company or their mortgage company. But in all fairness, as long as I've got that document signed, I'm not really bothered. And okay. I always put, if I'm going to spend money on the properties, refurbing them as part of the deal, I'll either have free rent to cover the period whilst I'm doing that, or I'll have an agreement in by way of, like, if you want me back out this property within a certain time frame, or before I've got my money back out, you have to pay me X, Y, and Z. And again, as long as I've got that signed, I'm not really bothered.
Okay.
You know, I think it's up to them really. It's them that get involved, not me. And as long as I've covered my financial situation, then I'm quite comfortable with that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Anyone else?
I asked mine once. It's really interesting, Ryan. Really good. Yeah, I might be interested a bit more in the the software, how you actually go around doing it. That might be. I think that's one of the areas where I'm a bit lax at the moment on, you know, how it actually all operates. I mean,
yeah. So we've got like so I use Asana for my whole business. So Asana's it's effectively like a task management software. I think it's similar to like Trello and a few other Podio and things like that. But with me, so I've got Asana, and then I've like built Asana to suit my business. So I haven't like bought an off-the-shelf product and then just tried to make the business fit that. I've actually used Asana. It's got the functionality that I need, and then I've built that to suit my business. So whether it's SA management, whether it's the HMOs, whether it's the single lets, whether it's the annual boiler checks, whether it's the maintenance, whether it's the cleaning schedule, it's all built in Asana, and it all kind of links up. And then we have Beds24, which is our channel manager. So that like feeds all the booking channels and all the properties and the website and all that sort of stuff. And then from that, I use Price Labs for my pricing software, and I use Wishbox as our guest management software, and they all link into Beds24. And then from that, you've got all the various reporting through either email notifications or Google Sheets or Zapier, and Zapier kind of links a lot of that stuff together as well. And that kind of makes it flow, I guess. But obviously it wasn't just buy them all and then it happily just worked. You have to kind of put it all together but
sort of mapping your workflow.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So if this happens, that happens, and if this comes in there, this then happens. Or you know, for like the guest handling side of things, it's when a booking's made, obviously it then drops into Asana. It notifies the guest handlers that they've got a booking to sort of qualify and check, and it also then notifies the cleaners that they've got a clean to check, or it notifies the head cleaner that they've got to arrange a clean. Then they have to tag the cleaner that's going, and then we've got loads of other softwares, such as we've got like a GPS time tracker for the cleaners, which makes the accountancy software, the accounts easier to reconcile and pay on a Monday. And we obviously use Xero as our accountancy software, and that links to a lot of these things as well. So the whole thing is quite automated. It doesn't come without its, every now and then something breaks, but that's technology. And but most of the time it's pretty robust and it works very well.
Wow.
How many units are you running, Ryan?
Do you know what? I don't actually know the answer to that question.
That's a lot of software for that. That's not just a few rooms or a few units by the sound of it.
No.
You've literally lost count.
I did used to quote the figure that we used to change 300 to 400 beds a week, but that was quite a while ago. So it's probably more than that now. I don't know. I don't actually get that involved in the operations now. I've kind of, I read the, what was the book called? Clockwork. If you want to ever position your business, there's a book called Clockwork. It's all about what basically happened was when I went through a stage of, I acquired 21 properties in 7 months, on various strategies. And I was so hell-bent on acquiring properties that I kind of forgot how the operations of it needs to happen. And then I ended up getting so swamped in the operations that we didn't acquire any properties for about 3 months. So I kind of figured out that I needed to escape from the operations. I'm a big fan that you shouldn't be doing the work. You should just be creating the business and designing the business, and then you pack the operations off. And that's what this Clockwork's all about. So it's kind of like you free up what they call the queen bee role. So the queen bee's there to obviously create the honey, and all the rest of the bees are there to make sure that no one gets in the way of her creating the honey. And that's the same. So my goal in my business is acquiring property. So I'll always protect anybody so effectively it's me and my brother who pretty much acquire the property now. So I'll always make sure that we are, or especially me, but Liam as well, we're protected from operations as best we can, although Liam is my operations manager. So we have like layers. So say my guest handlers are allowed £100 spend limit, so that if anything needs fixing in the properties, they're allowed to authorize up to £100. So that stops them ringing me saying, can I fix a light bulb? Can we fix a toaster or whatever? And then from there, if it's over £100, once they've got the quotes from the maintenance guys, then they have to go to Gemma, who's our head cleaner, and she's got a £500 limit. So she can then spend up to £500 on repairing stuff, sorting stuff out. If it goes over £500, it goes to Liam. And if it goes over £1,000, it comes to me. So I don't really get bothered. And that's the way it needs to be. And that's the same for a lot of the things that we have in the business. So there's like certain authorization levels that they have to go through before they get to me. And then that means that we can just concentrate on, for me at the minute, it's concentrating on the academy and on, and on just acquiring more property and funding the properties and all that sort of stuff. Because I found myself like dealing with guests and organizing cleaning schedules and basically doing a lot of stuff that doesn't earn any more money for the business. So, and this is one thing that I kind of teach when my guys get going on the mentor program. We teach sort of business efficiencies, because everyone gets sucked into the business and they end up doing the business operations because they don't want to spend the money, they don't want to invest in people, but really by not doing that, they're actually suffocating themselves, and they're not allowing themselves the opportunity to expand. So once I realized that, you went to another level altogether.
So it's the whole working on the business, not in the business theory.
Yeah, which is easier said than done when you kind of haven't got much on the go. I'm just on a call, can you know? So it's all about exactly. I don't get sucked into the operation side of things.
And my last question, you said you've obviously not just SAs, you've got HMOs and buy-to-lets. What's your split? What's your business split?
Probably we have a lot of single lets, which is kind of where we started the business, I guess. We do have a lot of SAs now from one reason or another. SAs probably 40% of the business, maybe. HMOs, we're starting to really pick up HMOs, but I guess with HMOs, every room's a kind of a property, isn't it? You know, so
Yeah.
But I don't know how many HMO rooms we've got now, but be well over 50 or 60, I would say. So we've just picked up. I'm probably buying more HMOs now than I am anything else at the minute. Just COVID kind of probably did give me a bit of a shock that, and we're already diversified, but I just felt like maybe we wanted to get just a bit more diversified onto sort of the, you know, at the end of the day, tenants are always going to be around, especially in our lifetimes, you know, so they're always going to need places to rent no matter what happens. So, whereas things like service accommodation can obviously fluctuate with natural disasters and stuff like that. So, so it just made me think a bit more. So I just kind of tweaked the strategy and thought we'll buy a bit more HMO stuff in the balance of 2020. I'll continue to take on SAs if they present themselves and they're good deals. I'm not scared of it at all. You know, we've just taken on a load more in London, and we're still out there, and we've got a lot of stuff coming on. So I've bought 2 flats during lockdown in Newcastle and Gateshead. I'll turn them into service accommodation units because they'll work well. So I've got no sort of fear of service accommodation.
You buy them with the thought of a plan B. You said earlier about, you know, SAs obviously lend themselves fairly nicely to HMOs a lot of the time, and the same with the smaller SAs. Do you always stack the numbers for a buy-to-let or an HMO as a fallback?
No, I analyze every deal on if I'm buying, I analyze every deal on a standard tenancy, because like HMOs and SA could disappear in the future, but single family homes are always going to be around, you know. So I always stack my deals, like for my buy, refurbish, refinance projects, I always stack them on a single let basis. I just think that makes common sense to me, because that's your worst case scenario. And then what you do is you try and maximize the rent of the property through what I call super rents. So either a HMO, a mini-mo, or an SA. And if that pays off, great. It means that you'll get your money back out quicker and you'll have a great annual profit. But if it doesn't, well, at least you know your numbers work on your standard sort of single let.
Is that with your purchases? Do you tend to worry about it if it's a rent?
Yeah, I mean, if you can't obviously do you can do a single let if it's a rent, but that's in a worst case scenario position. But in an ideal world, you should be negotiating below market value rents for your longer term commitments. So not that I've ever had to do it yet, touch wood, but if say I bought a dud and it was an SA unit, I would always then I'd just rent it out as a single let, and if I had to lose £100 a month for the term of the agreement or whatever it was, then I'd do that, you know. But if I was getting enough of a discount on the front end, you should be able to rent it out and at least cover your costs, if not make a tiny bit of money. So yeah, but it doesn't really bother me as such. But I think that's because you've got doing the due diligence right on the front end's the most important, and if you get it right, then it should work as an SA or a HMO.
Mm-hmm.
Hi Ryan, it's me.
Sorry, Bobby, go on.
Hi Ryan, it's me, Bobby. Nice talk. Really, quite a lot of information. Especially, I couldn't even remember the number of apps you've been talking about. It. I need to write it down. It's quite a lot, which has been using it. My question in terms of the property which you mentioned, when you acquire the properties, like as a single-let properties. Do you look for a potential for HMO, whether it is an Article 4 area? Because you mentioned it's like an SAs are working very well in city centers, etc. And most of the city centers, they will be on Article 4 area. So do you consider those points when you buy it, or you don't mind whether Article 4 or not?
No, I buy based on a single let basis, so I don't buy on a HMO or and obviously single lets aren't covered in Article 4. So anything I buy is just purely on it. I only buy refurbished, refinance projects. Like if my money gets stuck in the deal, I'm not interested in it at all. I don't care where the property is. I don't really invest for long-term growth. I invest for cash flow. So I want to be able to put my money through a property and get it back out within 3.5 months, and then use that money again to buy another property. And that's how you build wealth quickly. And so far it works well. Obviously every now and then you get caught blindsided. You might have refurbishment costs that, even no matter how experienced you are, you still get caught every now and then. But if they rent well, then you get your money back out. And as long as you're getting 80-90% of the money back out of each deal, then you can keep moving forward. And and then what I'm finding now is, and I've never done it before because I just never really felt like I needed to, but a light bulb kind of went off in my head, and I thought, well, I had an angel investor approach me and say, basically, if you got any deals that I can fund for you, because I've got some money kicking about. And I've never really wanted to go down that route. But then I thought, well, I use bridging all the time, so I guess it's just like a bridging loan, really. So so we did a deal, and then I thought to myself, well, and then he basically said, can we go again? And I've actually got some more money this time. So I was like, I was speaking to the team. I was like, we need to actually find some more properties because we've got money to spend ourselves. And now this guy also wants to give us more money. So we need more deals. So ultimately it benefits us because we acquire property and I've got equity in that property from day one. And obviously it adds to the cash flow each month. So that works. But the kind of light bulb went off, and I thought, well, maybe we could actually really double the growth again by using this type of money as well as our own money, and just using the same strategy and spinning it. So I guess the plus side is, I'm quite confident that even if I got 6 or 7 grand tied up, well, I could just pay him that back out of my pot of money, and then I'm not paying interest on that money. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of probably in a bit of a different position now, whereas if it was your first deal and you thought, oh, well, if I was stuck on if I get the money stuck and then I have to pay him a 10% per annum return on that money until I've paid him all his money back, it might not be a great deal. Whereas,
which makes sense. Yeah.
Whereas now, if I'd quite happily just top the pot up and pay him back. But they seem keen to want to keep doing it, So and every time we speak to them, they've got more money to offer. So
Do you take, apart from the bridging, do you do any of those mortgage products to buy the properties, or you only do through bridging?
No,
or cash investment?
Mortgage to mortgage is the slowest way possible. And I know people say that bridging's expensive, but when you factor in the amount of properties you can buy in the same time as you can do, I think in the early days, I did a mortgage to mortgage buy refurbished refinance, and it took me about 10 months to get everything washed through and get the money back out into my bank. Whereas on bridging, I can do it in about 3.5 months now. So I can get from when I exchange, I ring my mortgage broker and tell them that I've completed the refurb and tell them to apply for the mortgage application. So I haven't even completed on the property, and we're already going for the mortgage application. And then by the time the valuers come out, we'll have completed the work, and then we're straight into the refinance. And if we're a bit delayed on the work, I'll just stall the valuer slightly by just saying I'm away, I can't meet you, whatever it might be. But it's a very, very good. I love it. I think buy refurbished refinance is a powerful strategy.
So mainly with the bridging, you mean, right?
Yeah, with bridging, yeah. So although the fees might be more expensive, it took me 10 months to do a mortgage to mortgage. Well, I could probably buy 3 or 4 in the same time period using bridging loan. So,
makes sense.
Yeah, I'm going to pay a bit more fees, but I think each one I buy has about £20,000 worth of equity in them, and cash flow is about $350 a month if I don't put it on an SA or a HMO strategy. So, in that time period, I'm going to have the cash flow. I've got the 20 grand equity, times 3. So I've made 60 grand, plus probably £1,000 worth of cash flow every month. So the fees are irrelevant really compared to mortgage to mortgage.
Yeah. Brian, can I ask you, like, if you take a bridging loan for example, for a property of 100K, so 75% they'll give it, 25 you invested usually, isn't it? So 75K. What? Sorry.
65% now at the minute on bridging loans, but
Okay. So you put 35% there, and within 3 months you finish that bridging. And if you are taking the bridging loan for a year, can you move that same product to the next property which you're buying it in third month or fourth month, or you need to take a new product?
no, you
product?
take it. You take it. So you basically have like your 12 months, which is your maximum time before you then start getting hit with real. I actually sometimes now I only take 6 months because the fees, the interest rate's cheaper. So as long as you're confident, as long as you're confident in getting it done, then you can actually take a shorter term and you can like pay less. But no, you've got to because effectively it's like you get a settlement, you get a redemption figure, and you've got to settle that loan off with your new mortgage product because that loan has a charge against the property, so you have to settle it off, and then you'd set a new.
Okay, because every time it's a startup fees there. That's what I just asked you, like whether you can move from, finish off this one in 3 months' time, even though you have 6 months remaining, you can move that product to the next property. You can't. Okay.
I mean, there might be someone out there that does it, but I don't. That's not how I do it. I just settle it off and then start another one. So yeah.
Yeah. Usually the bridging loans, like they say 1 to 2% of the starting fee. I mean, they charge it for.
Yeah, there's various ones. I was using Together Finance and Paragon. Paragon actually had a product where they did a bridge to loan product. So they'd actually come out and tell you what the loan value, they'd tell you what the invested value was going to be after you'd proposed what works you were going to do. So you could kind of work out whether you were going to get any money stuck or not from day one. Which was a good product, but they've pulled that product at the minute. I think it'll come back, but they have pulled that at the minute. So
yeah, at the moment they stopped. I believe the Paragon one, which you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of bridging products disappeared, but they are. So when COVID first happened, Together reduced their loan to value to 50%, but they're now at 65. So
he'll be back.
Yeah,
he'll be coming back.
They need to lend money to earn money. So
yeah. I think that's also the reason why the mortgage to mortgage products don't work as well, because with the bridge to loan, you know what your refinance value is before you've even started work. Well, before you've even purchased it, really.
Yeah.
So it's like a guarantee, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, I will say they're a bit clever on those bridge to loan products because let's just say your loan application doesn't go through as quick as possible because obviously they've got you on the bridging rates. So they're like, oh, can we have this bit of documentation? They kind of, for me, they seem to stall it a bit, so they get another bit more interest out here and a bit more bridging. But yeah, I guess it gives you the confidence that you've got your numbers right. But then I think once you've done, 2, 3, 5, 10 of these sort of BRR style setups, you get very confident in your numbers and like some of them now I don't even send valuers. I just buy them on Together, get finance within 24 hours, and then we just get them washed through within 4 weeks. I don't even send valuers out to them, and then I just know they'll wash through. And you don't always need valuers to go and surveyors to go and look at properties. Just do desktop valuations and just crack on with them. It's only if I feel like if it's a bit of a tired property, or I feel like it might have a bit of subsidence or something like that, then obviously I get them checked over. But a flat in a block of flats, there's probably not going to be that much wrong with that, So what's the point in paying 300-400 quid to get a valuation on it? Just get a desktop survey and just crack on with it.
So you just get it valued when you're ready to refinance, when the work's done.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the mortgage companies do have to send a valuer out to get that, because that's for them basically. But a bridging product, it's up to you, because at the end of the day, it's short-term, quick funding. And if I think they're quite happy if you get stuck on bridges, because obviously they earn a lot of money from them. So
yeah.
So Ryan, with your BRR strategy, you don't mind to buy property in any street, any city, anywhere, not literally near to you.
No, most my BRR stuff's on my doorstep. We are looking down in Reading at the minute, but my brother lives down there, so that's kind of, he knows that area. I wouldn't not buy in another area, but for me, it's all about the management of the property thereafter. It's not really about the, you know, if I bought one property in Cornwall, it might be the best BRR deal in the world, but if I've got to look after that for the next 25 years, it could become a bit chore, you know. Whereas if I could buy 10 properties in Cornwall and they all work BRR, then I'd look to do that, because then I'd have a maintenance team down there and I'd have interests down there to be able to look after those. But I don't point in buying one around, like dotted around. I think there's enough on your doorstep as well. Like there's enough BRR projects on your doorstep to do what you need to do. Yeah. So,
do you mind me asking that those apps you mentioned, which is quite good and helpful, share it with us? You know, you mentioned a few apps in there.
Yeah, so Asana is kind of the main app that we use for the business. Everyone kind of talks through Asana. And to be honest, Asana's free for quite a lot of it, but then if you want like the functionality that you need to automate your businesses, you've got to start paying for it. It's still not fortunes though. And then the rest of it's just the channel manager, so Beds24, Wishbox, and what's the other one? Beds24, Wishbox, Price Labs.
Price Labs. Okay.
Can I just ask, Ryan, with the rent to essays, when you take those on, do you ever consider taking on any kind of like refurbishment, or are they mint properties that you take on?
No, I go the other way. I look for all my rent stuff, rent to SA, rent to HMOs. There, 9 times out of 10, I'll take on a refurbishment project, because they're the motivated landlords that reach out to us because they can't get their properties rented and they haven't got the money to spend on them, or they're like tired looking student properties, so they're not getting good rents. You know, they're getting quite long voids or they're getting quite high turnovers because people don't want to live in shitholes all the time. So they're the properties that we do take on, but they're on my terms because I'm the one that's got the money and I'm going to be spending it on your property and you haven't got the money. So for them, it's easier for them to give me a rent-free period and pay their mortgage than it is to actually spend the refurb money. So I think the most I've probably spent is about $8,000 on someone else's property. But that was a 5-bedder, and I knew with my calculations I'd get them back out within 6 months, which is my sort of rule of thumb. And sure enough, we did, you know. So.
And are you taking them on for 5 years? Yeah,
I mean, I take them on for as long as the landlord kind of wants them, you know. I mean, some landlords get a bit spooked by the 5 years because they're like, oh, well, what if I want to sell in 3 years' time or whatever? And I normally say, well, you've already got your buyer, so just come and knock on my door and I'll buy them off you, know?
Good point.
But I just kind of weigh it up what they want, and it doesn't really bother me because at the end of the day, if I spend money, I always put the clauses in the contract. So whether it's 3 years, 5 years, or 1 year, I need my money back out before they can do anything anyway.
Okay. Anyone else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
No, that's really covered it well. Thanks very much, Ryan.
No
really
problem.
good.
No
Got any
Thank you very
questions,
much, Ryan.
No, he's quiet. You're on mute, but I'm taking that as a no. Just to mention to you, Chris, because I know that you have already, you know, you're already going down the route of SA, and as you say, you're fairly new to it. Ryan does do a almost like a supporters program. I think it's still £10 a month, isn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, the WhatsApp group. Yeah.
So you've got loads of people who are in the SA industry that you have got a WhatsApp at, you know, any time you can stick a question on there and you'll have someone who'll come back to an answer, and it's a really helpful resource.
Yeah, it's actually a full it's actually turned into it's just property in general now, but there are a lot of SA people in there. So I've got quite a few good things coming at the minute. I'm working on a 21-day portfolio builder challenge, which keep your eye on that should be launched in the next couple of weeks. Well, Luke Holmes Academy is the website. There's various products on there. From access, you can actually, if you go on there and there's a button on the top that either says free training or login, and you can create an account, and it gives you a behind the scenes look of all the content that's in the program, and there's some free webinars and stuff on there as well. So.
Okay, all right, I'll take a look. Thanks very much. Thanks for mentioning that, Ange.
That's all right. I was on there myself for myself probably for 3 or 4 months, and there was some really great information that comes through, and daily emails with different training tips and stuff. So I only came out of it because we've kind of changed our strategy, I think, at the minute. But otherwise, I'd still be in there because there's loads of good information in there.
Okay, cool.
What's the website name, Ryan? Sorry.
What, sorry? The website.
What's the website? Yeah.
It's Luke Holmes Academy.
Luke Holmes Academy. And WhatsApp group is the same name.
If you go on Luke Holmes Academy, and then there's a page on there. So there's 2 things to do. If you want to sign up for an account at the top, it's free, and you get access to like some free webinars. Or if you click on the products page, it's got all the different stuff that we do. So
okay.
It's all quite stuff. You can buy the deal analyzer. There's loads of stuff on there. So.
Okay.
All right, guys.
That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Super.
Ryan.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Thanks ever so much, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you, Angie. Thanks, Ryan.
Cheers.
Bye.